You wonder why you fail to move forward. It is not your enemies outside, but the enemy inside, your own thoughts, that drag you down. In this lesson, I will expose the dark psychology of negative thinking and give you the ruthless strategies to strangle it before it strangles you. Stay with me, for by the end, you will see how to command your mind as a prince commands his state. Every man is born into battle, though not all carry a sword. The greatest battlefield lies not in the streets of Florence, nor in the courts of kings, but in the chambers of the mind. There, in the silence of thought, a hidden enemy wages war negative thinking. It appears subtle, whispering like a serpent in the shadows, telling you that you are too weak, too unprepared, too late or too broken to rise. And what is most cruel, it does not roar like a lion, it does not strike like an assassin. No, it convinces you slowly, with gentle poison, until you bow to it willingly. But listen carefully. This enemy is an illusion, a phantom dressed in the robes of reason. When fear strikes you, when doubt consumes you, do you not see how it multiplies in your head? A single thought, as small as a drop of water, turns into an ocean in your mind. One failure becomes the prophecy of 10. One mistake convinces you of eternal weakness. This is not truth. This is a trick of the imagination. And only a fool allows himself to be ruled by shadows. A prince, when he hears of danger, does not collapse at the rumor. He investigates. He asks, where is the proof? What is the source? Does this threat have teeth, or is it but air? You must do the same with your mind. When negativity whispers, do not tremble, interrogate it, drag it into the light. Ask, is this fear based on fact? Or is it my weakness inventing excuses to remain still? 9 times out of 10, you will discover that the danger never existed, except in your own head. Consider how many opportunities men lose, not because an enemy struck them, but because they struck themselves with hesitation. They did not try. Not because the world blocked their path, but because their mind convinced them the path was impossible. I tell you this, failure does not destroy as much as fear of failure does. Negative thoughts are like ghosts. They cannot touch you unless you bow to them. They cannot command you unless you give them obedience. And yet, most men do exactly that. They obey the lie. They hear the whisper, you are not ready, and instead of sharpening their sword, they drop it. They hear, you will embarrass yourself, and instead of speaking with conviction, they choke on their own silence. They hear others are stronger, richer, more powerful, and instead of plotting strategy, they surrender before the war begins. This is the mark of mediocrity, the destiny of the herd, the curse of those who will never rise. But you, if you are to command power, if you are to rule your own destiny, you must tear the mask from this illusion. Do not accept the first thought that comes to you as truth. Do not mistake imagination for reality. The mind has a talent for exaggeration. It creates mountains where only hills exist, storms where only rain falls, enemies where none even think of you. Negative thinking thrives in exaggeration. It takes one moment of uncertainty and multiplies it into a lifetime of defeat. If you allow it, a wise ruler knows that fear is useful only when it protects, not when it enslaves. A ruler who fears every whisper of rebellion, every rumor of betrayal, will never act, and thus he loses his crown before a blade is ever drawn. Likewise, a man who fears every possibility of failure loses his life before he ever truly lives it. The illusion of negativity convinces him that safety lies in hesitation, when in truth, hesitation is the slowest form of death. You must train your eyes to see this illusion for what it is. When the voice says, you cannot succeed, ask, on what grounds? When the voice says, others will laugh at you, ask, and what power do their laughs have over my destiny? When the voice says, you will fail, ask, is failure not the very path to mastery? Drag the liar into the open, and you will find that most of its power dies under questioning. The illusion of negativity survives only in the dark corners of an undisciplined mind. The moment you examine it, the moment you challenge it, it shatters. Like a phantom in the daylight, it fades into nothingness. But if you allow it to remain unchallenged, it will grow bold. It will become a tyrant over your choices until you mistake slavery for safety and call your chains wisdom. Emotion is the chain that keeps men crawling when they could stand. It is the invisible leash that drags them into weakness. Men tremble at rejection. They drown in anger. They despair at small defeats. They allow their emotions to rule them like a cruel master, and then wonder why they remain servants in life rather than commanders. But understand this: power belongs to the one who feels but does not obey those feelings. When your mind is filled with negativity, what truly drives it? Not logic, not evidence, but raw emotion. Fear magnifies failure in your imagination. Shame tells you to hide from opportunities. Anger blinds you to strategy. Sadness convinces you that your strength has already run dry. All of these are emotions. They do not speak truth, they speak impulse. And impulse, when followed blindly, leads men into ruin. Think of the battlefield. A commander who reacts in fury to every insult, who charges recklessly because his blood runs hot, will lead his army into slaughter. His men will admire his passion for a moment, but they will curse his foolishness when they lie bleeding in the mud. Yet a commander who calculates, who sees the terrain, who studies the enemy's weakness, who restrains his anger until the precise moment, it is he who turns war into victory. You must treat your mind the same way. When a negative thought rises, do not collapse into emotion. Do not ask, "How do I feel about this?" But instead ask, "What does this thought serve? What purpose does it fulfill?" If it guides you to act more wisely, then perhaps it has value. But if it is nothing more than despair, then it is a traitor within your walls. A ruler does not keep advisors who speak only of doom without offering solutions. Why, then, would you keep such voices in your own head? Imagine this: you wish to begin a new venture, yet your mind says, "It is too risky, you may fail." Emotion hears this and trembles. But calculation asks, what is the true cost if I fail? What is the true gain if I succeed? Is the risk fatal, or is it merely uncomfortable? Calculation slices through the fog of fear and gives you clarity. While emotion paralyzes, calculation mobilizes. Or consider when someone humiliates you. Emotion demands you strike back instantly to protect pride. But calculation asks, will this response give me advantage, or will it reveal my weakness? Should I wait until I can crush him completely? Or should I let him believe I am harmless until the trap is ready? Many men lose wars of power because they obey the first cry of emotion rather than the cold logic of timing. To master your mind, you must learn to pause between the rise of emotion and the act that follows. This pause is where power is born. Most men know only reaction. They are provoked, and they respond instantly, like puppets tugged by invisible strings. But the one who pauses, who calculates, who chooses his response not from impulse but from strategy, he is untouchable. He becomes feared, for others cannot predict him. They cannot manipulate him. They cannot drag him into their chaos. Even when you feel negativity, you must learn to dissect it like a surgeon. If you think, "I cannot succeed," ask yourself, is there evidence for this claim, or is this my emotion disguised as logic? If you think, "I am too weak," demand proof. Often you will see that the only weakness lies in the emotional narrative, not in reality. And once you see this, the illusion loses its grip. Do not misunderstand me. Emotion has its place. It can inspire men, it can stir armies, it can drive ambition. But emotion must be your servant, not your master. A prince uses the passion of the people to secure his throne. He does not allow their passion to dictate his every move. Likewise, you may use your feelings to fuel your drive, but never let them steer the wheel of decision. The man who rules with emotion is like a ship tossed in the storm, while the man who rules with calculation is the storm itself. Every man lives by a story. Some call it destiny, others call it belief, but I call it the narrative that rules his mind. Understand this: you are not destroyed by the events of your life, but by the story you attach to them. Two men may face the same storm. One sees it as the end. The other sees it as a trial to prove his strength. The event is the same, yet the outcome differs, because the story within their heads is not the same. Your mind is a stage, and every day it chooses which play to perform. Sometimes it brings forth a tragedy, whispering to you that you are doomed, weak, incapable of more than failure. At other times, it offers a comedy of excuses, convincing you that it is safer to laugh at your dreams than to chase them. And rarely, it will stage a tale of victory. But here is the truth. You are the playwright. You are not the passive spectator. If your life is ruled by despair, it is because you have allowed despair to write the script. Look at the rulers of history. Did Caesar believe he was unworthy before he crossed the Rubicon? Did Alexander think himself a mere mortal when he marched to conquer the world? No, these men carried a narrative in their hearts that demanded victory. The story they told themselves was of greatness, and that story became prophecy. But the common man tells himself a very different tale. He repeats endlessly, "I am not enough, I will be defeated, I must settle for less." He becomes chained not by others, but by his own tongue. If you wish to kill negative thinking, you must first seize the pen from the liar within. Do not let the inner voice create endless tales of doom. Replace it with your own decree. Speak to yourself not as a beggar asking permission, but as a ruler commanding his future. Say, "I will rise, I will endure, I will dominate," and more importantly, act as though it were already written. For repetition breeds belief, and belief shapes action. Think carefully on these words are not harmless. They carve the mind like a sculptor's chisel carves stone. When you say to yourself, "I cannot," you engrave weakness into your character. When you repeat, "I will never," you build a prison of certainty around your own potential. But when you say, "I will," and your actions echo those words, you build an empire first within and then without. Your enemies, if they are wise, will always try to control your narrative. They will spread rumors that you are weak, incapable, unstable. They do not do this because it is truth. They do it because they know that if you accept their story, you will collapse without them lifting a sword. That is the power of narrative. If the tale is accepted by the mind, the body follows it into defeat. Therefore, you must never allow another man to write your script. Listen, but do not absorb. Hear, but do not obey. Only your chosen narrative should rule. Think of a man who suffers failure. The weak mind says, "I am cursed. I should never try again." The disciplined mind says, "This failure is a lesson, a stepping stone, a weapon to be sharpened for the next attempt." One sees the end, the other sees the beginning. The event did not decide their fate. The story did. This is why I tell you reality is shaped twice. First in thought, then in action. If your thoughts collapse, your actions will too. But if your thoughts remain under your command, no event can enslave you. The story you allow to echo in your head is either your greatest weapon or your sharpest blade against yourself. If you allow negativity to narrate your life, you will live as its servant. If you take control of that narrative and bend it to your will, you live as its master. And the difference between master and servant is not chance. It is choice. Most men run from their negative thoughts as though they were chased by wolves. They see fear and doubt as curses to be banished, as weaknesses to be buried deep in silence. But the man of power does not flee from such energy. He harnesses it. He turns it into the fire that sharpens his will. Understand this: the emotions that cripple the weak can become the very fuel that builds the strong. When your mind whispers, "You cannot succeed," most men collapse, agreeing with the voice. But the wise do not obey. They answer with defiance, "I must, and therefore I will." They let the sting of doubt push them harder, further, faster. Just as poison can kill when swallowed, but heal when transformed into medicine, negative energy can be the weapon that arms you if you have the discipline to control it. Consider fear. Fear freezes the common man, but the ruler sees its hidden use. Fear sharpens awareness. It keeps the senses alive. The man who feels fear knows he has something worth protecting, something worth fighting for. The weak let fear chain them to inaction, while the strong grip it like a sword. Fear of insignificance becomes the fuel for greatness. Fear of poverty drives ambition, Fear of failure awakens preparation. Thus, what seems an enemy can be made into a loyal servant. And what of anger? The masses waste it in shouting, in petty revenge, in drunken arguments that achieve nothing. But anger, when controlled, becomes a source of immense strength. It is the fire that burns laziness to ash, the heat that forges discipline. The insult that might have broken, you can instead become the reason you rise, with twice the determination. A ruler does not waste anger on childish outbursts. He bottles it, sharpens it, and unleashes it when it delivers victory. Even despair has its use. When life brings you to your knees, when everything appears lost, most men crumble into nothingness. But the calculating mind says, if I am at the bottom, I now have nothing to lose. Therefore, I can move without fear. Desperation can make a man more dangerous than a well-fed king. For the desperate man has no hesitation. He fights as if the world has already ended, and in that fury, he discovers a strength that comfort could never give him. Do not misunderstand me. To use negativity as a weapon, you must rule over it with iron discipline. The undisciplined man drowns in his emotions because he confuses feeling with command. You must treat negative energy as a general treats soldiers. They may be unruly, loud, and chaotic, but when directed with strategy, they can win wars. Without command, they destroy themselves. With command, they destroy your enemies. Imagine a man preparing for battle. He feels fear, good. He can use it to sharpen his plan. He feels doubt, excellent. It forces him to calculate twice before making a move. He feels anger, perfect. He can store it like gunpowder, waiting to ignite at the precise moment of confrontation. Where others see weakness, he sees weapons. Where others curse their thoughts, he bends them into tools. This is the difference between those who remain slaves to negativity and those who turn it into dominance. A slave hears the voice of doubt and obeys. A master hears the same voice and converts it into drive. Both feel the same emotions, but one is broken by them, while the other forges power from their flame. Your mind is a forge. Every spark of negativity can either burn you alive or harden you into steel. The choice lies in how you respond. If you drown in it, you are lost. If you command it, you become unstoppable. No man is an island, no matter how powerful he becomes. Even the strongest ruler requires allies, advisors, and soldiers to uphold his rule. But here lies a truth that most men ignore. The company you keep will either fortify your mind or corrode it from within. Your thoughts are not born in isolation. They are shaped by the voices around you. If you walk among cowards, do not be surprised when you inherit their fear. If you walk among the ambitious, do not be surprised when your ambition sharpens into steel. Negativity does not always come from within. Often, it creeps into you from the mouths of others. You share a dream and they laugh. You speak of conquest and they tell you to be realistic. You attempt action and they recite to you the long list of ways it can go wrong. These people believe they are wise because they point out obstacles, but understand this. They are not advisors, they are anchors. They are chained to mediocrity, and by keeping you close, they chain you with them. A prince cannot afford such company. He must surround himself with certainty, with people whose conviction is unshakable, whose will does not tremble at every difficulty. For certainty is contagious. When you sit at a table with men who believe without hesitation in their mission, you feel your own resolve harden. Their eyes remind you that doubt is a disease, and hesitation is a sin. This is why kings choose generals who inspire fearlessness in soldiers. Why emperors banish weak advisors from their courts. They know that one coward can infect 1,000 with his weakness. Imagine an army camp on the eve of battle. One soldier mutters, "We are doomed. The enemy is stronger." That single whisper can rot through the camp like a plague, until even the bravest hesitate. But one commander who stands firm, who looks at the enemy and says with steel in his voice, "We will break them," can set fire to the courage of thousands. Such is the power of certainty. It multiplies strength just as negativity multiplies fear. You must be ruthless in choosing the company you keep. Do not tolerate constant complainers. for their words slowly sink into your skin and poison your thinking. Do not tolerate the ones who excuse their weakness by disguising it as wisdom. Their so-called realism is nothing but surrender dressed in noble clothing. Do not tolerate the ones who live small and insist that you do the same. For these are not friends, they are saboteurs wearing the mask of concern. Instead, cultivate alliances with those who aim higher than you, those whose willpower makes yours look tame. Surround yourself with men and women who move as if failure were not even a possibility. They may not speak gently. They may not comfort you in weakness, but they will demand of you the same ruthlessness they demand of themselves. And in that fire, you will be sharpened. Even in solitude, surround yourself with certainty through the voices you allow into your mind. The books you read, the words you consume, the lessons you study. All of these are companions in your private court. If you fill your mind with stories of despair, your spirit will rot. But if you feed it with histories of conquest, tales of ambition, lessons of power, your spirit will be armored. Remember, it is not enough to kill negative thinking within yourself if you allow it to creep back in through the mouths of others. Guard your gates. Choose your counsel. Build an inner circle that breathes conviction as naturally as others breathe air. If you wish to rule your mind, then you must rule your environment with equal authority. For the mind is not only what it thinks, but also what it absorbs. And if you are careless with the people around you, their poison becomes your own. A kingdom without discipline collapses, no matter how great its walls or how sharp its swords. Soldiers left to their own impulses will desert, steal, and fight among themselves until the enemy barely needs to strike. The same law governs your mind. Without discipline, your thoughts scatter, rebel, and betray you at the moment you most need them. You may think your enemy is outside you, but more often it is within. Your undisciplined thoughts, running wild like soldiers drunk before battle. You must understand that discipline is not natural. The mind is lazy by instinct. It wanders toward fear, temptation, and distraction. It prefers comfort to rigor, fantasy to strategy, excuses to execution. If you leave it unguarded, it will rot. But when trained, the mind can become sharper than any blade, steadier than any fortress. Just as an army drilled daily can stand unshaken in the storm of war, a mind drilled in discipline can withstand the storms of doubt, fear, and chaos. What does it mean to discipline your mind? It means you treat it as a commander treats his army. Every thought is a soldier under your command. Some will obey immediately, others will rebel. Some will attempt treachery. The weak commander lets them roam. The strong commander drills them, aligns them, gives them purpose. When a negative thought rises, you do not let it take position freely. You confront it, question it, and either put it to work or drive it out. Every soldier has a role, and if it refuses, it is executed. Discipline begins with structure. An army without routine cannot fight, and a man without routine cannot think clearly. You must set order to your days, to your actions, to your very thoughts. Wake when you choose, not when your weakness commands you. Work when it is required, not only when you feel inspired. Inspiration is for poets, discipline is for rulers. When you repeat this daily, your mind learns to obey, and over time, obedience becomes natural. But discipline is not only about routine, it is about command under pressure. A true army is not tested in the parade ground, but on the battlefield when arrows fall and blood is spilled. Likewise, your mind is not tested in calm moments, but when life attacks, when you are insulted, when you face loss, when fear enters. In those moments, the undisciplined mind collapses into panic, while the disciplined mind stands like a wall of iron. It does not mean you feel nothing, it means you command what you feel. Do not imagine discipline is cruelty. Discipline is freedom. The undisciplined man is a slave to impulse. He is pulled by every mood, every temptation, every wave of fear. He calls himself free, but in truth, he is chained by his own weakness. The disciplined man may seem strict, but his strictness gives him power. He chooses where to go, while the undisciplined drifts wherever the current takes him. Which life do you think leads to power? the drifting of a leaf, or the march of an army. You must practice discipline daily. When the mind says, "Stop, it is too difficult," you reply, "Continue." When it says, "This is enough," you respond, "It is not yet enough." Each time you impose your will upon your thoughts, you train them as soldiers. The more you do it, the more your mind bends to your command. And soon, hesitation will no longer govern you, because hesitation itself has been drilled into silence. A disciplined mind is a fortress. Enemies may attack, storms may rage, temptations may call, but the walls hold strong. The banners fly above the ramparts. The soldiers remain in rank. No rebellion of thought, no invasion of fear, no siege of doubt can break it. That is the strength you must build. That is the army you must command. And the one who masters such discipline cannot be conquered by man, by circumstance, or even by his own weakness. You have now seen what weak men refuse to face, that negative thinking is not a harmless whisper, but a hidden assassin. It cloaks itself in reason, disguises itself as caution, and slowly rots the mind from within. But you are no common man. You are one who seeks power, control, and dominion over yourself and others. To conquer this enemy, you must unmask its illusions, strip emotion from your judgment, seize control of the narrative, transform poison into fuel, surround yourself with the certainty of the strong, and discipline your mind as a commander disciplines his army. These are not suggestions, they are necessities, for a ruler who cannot command his own thoughts will never command his destiny. Remember this truth: the man who masters his mind cannot be enslaved by fear, cannot be broken by despair, and cannot be defeated by the whispers of weakness. He becomes untouchable. He becomes inevitable. And in a world ruled by doubt, he alone stands as master of his fate.